You can find these brushes and stamps for Procreate in Etsy. The link is below. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to use my new alcohol ink stamp set and brushes. So pick a texture that you like. There's 15 to choose from, and I have the color palette that already has colors that look good together picked out for you. So I'm going to use one of those. So I'm just going through and picking different colors and placing the different textures that I would like to see together. And the thing about these brushes is you can size them to different sizes. So if you want it a little bit smaller, you can just use that sidebar to make them smaller. And so just keep going through, finding the textures that you like, placing them where you want them to be. If it's too big, just make it smaller. And then you can just kind of play around with the look that you would like to get from these. And that's what's so fun about these stamps, is that you're going to be able to get so many different looks based on just choosing different colors, the size that you do them, where you place them, rotating them. There's so many different things that you can do with just the stamps alone. And then just kind of keep putting them in the places that you think look best. I personally like to just barely overlap them, because when you do alcohol ink, you'll do one color at a time and then you'll blow the next color, and you can control where you want that color. So if you want to blow the color really far into the next, then that's what you do. But if you just want it to barely touch, then you would just blow it just enough so that it just touches. So that's personally the look that I like. So I'm going to combine these by swiping them to the right, and then I'm going to flatten them, and then I'm going to pick a new layer above that, and I'm going to go and get the thick and thin gold lines. You're going to do all of these in black, and I'll show you why. So when we are placing where we want the gold embellishments, we're going to try to stick to the thick solid lines. And I like to also do this where the colors kind of overlap, because it makes it not stand out so much. That's not where your eyes are drawn. So I'm going to go around, and the great thing about this brush is that you can make it thick in some parts and thin in other parts. It's all based on the pressure of your stylus or Apple Pencil or whatever you're using. Apple Pencil is definitely going to be the best for this. So go around, and wherever you see really thick lines or wherever the colors meet, that in real life is where the ink is going to be thickest. And so that's generally where the gold is going to want to settle. And so just kind of find those dark lines. It doesn't need to be everywhere, but when you put the gold over and you blow it, it's naturally going to want to settle or kind of get stuck by the places that have more ink. It prevents it from going even further. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just trying to find kind of the edges, the outside, the dark lines, and I'm still changing it up, the thin and the thick of where I'm putting these. I'm doing this brush first and doing the gold overlay, and then I'm going to go in and do the spray, just so that there's really defined gold flecks. Because if you go over top of the gold brush too much, it's going to get really, really light. You'll also want to make some kind of black blobs, because you'll notice in real alcohol ink art that it gets really dense in some areas. So next, make a layer above and hit clipping mask. Go and pick one of those gold colors. I like the one right next to the rose gold. And then pick your gold overlay brush, and you're just going to start going over that black line. And in the clipping mask, the reason you use this is so that it only goes over what is beneath it. So right now, you're only drawing over those black lines. You're going to really want to make sure that you don't go back over this gold brush, because it will get lighter. But if you want there to be some of that variation, and you'll want some of the dark and some of the light gold, you would just go over it a little bit to make it just a little bit lighter. Okay, next make another layer, get your black color, and now we're going to go into the splatter, the spray. This is just going to go over those thick lines. So just kind of follow where you put those, but you can also put it into other spots as well. It won't look as intense, so don't feel like you're going overboard. And then you're going to get some of the kind of bigger flecks and just kind of put them over that same area, but you can also add a few flecks in the bigger spaces. Make another layer and hit clipping mask, and you're going to do the same thing. Get the same gold color, pick your gold overlay brush, and you're going to go and just start in that clipping mask layer. You're going to start going over these black flecks, and you'll notice that it starts getting a lot lighter. So it's just a really subtle hint of gold that you would see in real alcohol ink art that just kind of spreads over and rests on the page. So just keep doing this, and then once you have this all done, you can kind of look it over and see if you feel like you want more gold in some places, or if you like the way it looks, you can just leave it. But I'll show you what you can do for some of those other spots that you might want more thick gold. I have a brush that's designed to do kind of bigger globs of that gold, so it's the for the gold splotches. So you could just do the exact same thing as you were doing before. Just open another layer and then just kind of draw the black wherever you want, just those bigger splotches. Make a layer above, hit clipping mask, get that same gold color and the gold overlay, and then just go over top. And that's all you would do to just keep trying to add the different hints of gold everywhere else. And then you can just start merging things together. I merged these two together, and then I'll actually merge that down, but I'll turn this into a clipping mask just so that the gold stays within those alcohol ink lines, but you're welcome to keep the gold outside of the lines. This is just what I do for personal preference. All right, now I'm going to show you the brushes that will help you to customize the look. So these are the alcohol ink brushes. And so right now I'm just kind of quickly showing you how to use them, but you can take your time and really get the shapes that you want. This is just if you don't want to only use the stamps and you want to create your own shapes. So I'm just doing 2 colors for now, and I'm just doing them quickly. So just draw those out, and you'll notice that there's 3 of them. You can use the different edges based on what you want it to look like. And you'll notice in real alcohol ink, sometimes within the same color, it won't be smooth on one edge or bumpy on all the edges. Sometimes it's a mixture. So you can use these 3 brushes to kind of just get the different looks you want. You're going to now set these to multiply, because even though it looks like the center is not there and it's only an outline, it's still a solid color. So you are always going to set these to multiply and then create a layer above them and hit clipping mask like we were doing before. And this will allow you to place a texture over top with your custom shape. And so I just use the same color that I drew it in, which I'm just using the colors in my palette, and then I'll place the stamp over top. And so this just allows you to make a much more custom alcohol ink if you're not wanting to only use the stamps. And then you can go in, do another color, grab the alcohol ink brush, create the shape that you want. And again, I'm just doing this really quickly to show you how it works. Set it to multiply, create a layer above, and then pick a stamp that you want. And you'll notice how it went over because I don't have any clipping mask yet. So hit clipping mask, and this will make it so that it just covers that area. If you're not liking that it's overlapping too much, you can just swipe both to the right and kind of shift them around to where you want them to be. And then what I'm going to do now is what I was doing in the last one. You can create a layer, pick a black color, and then you're going to grab that thick and thin gold lines, and right where everything's meeting is where I like to add the gold embellishment, just because it takes away from everything overlapping. It's not as noticeable, because in real alcohol ink it's going to overlap. You're gonna have the darker color where a light color overlaps with another color, but it just makes it less in your face if these gold lines are kind of where all the colors meet. And then I just like to find the really dark lines kind of where the gold would naturally settle, and you can go around and just pick what looks good to you. I'll do some thick and thin lines, and then just do what we did before, create another layer, hit clipping mask, grab a gold color that you like, grab the gold overlay, and you're just going to go around and follow along the lines and create those gold lines that would be where they settle. All right, so keep filling in the gold, and again, if you don't want it to get too light, try not to overlap it. Try to just stick to those lines. And then I'm going to show you another brush that I created to really add some real effects. So you'll get the color and the bubble brush. And what happens with alcohol ink art is sometimes the alcohol will splash onto the ink, because what you do in alcohol ink art is you use the alcohol ink and then you use alcohol as well that kind of pushes each other around and creates the lines. The alcohol ink is a really fast drying medium, and so this is what helps you to get those really dark lines and textures. And so what will happen is the alcohol, when it kind of splashes onto the ink, you'll see these little dark lines with a really light center, or where maybe some bubbles popped or formed, or it just helps you to have that effect. All right, then create another layer above. I'm going to show you another brush that I've created. You do not have to use this brush, but sometimes in alcohol ink there's really light edges where the ink and the alcohol kind of moved away and left just a little bit of a residue. So just to add a little bit of realness, you can just use this brush to just kind of add that look of the alcohol ink and the alcohol moving to a different part of the paper and leaving behind that light residue. With this brush, the longer that you stay in one area, the more it kind of all blends together. So you can mess around with this brush if you want, but again, it's not necessary. I just added it for that effect. And then another fun thing that you can do with these is you can write a word. So I'm going to just combine all of these together and flatten them and use this as a clipping mask for my word. So I'm going to go create another layer, put it below. I'm going to just go get a basic calligraphy brush that's in just the stock calligraphy brush, pick a black color, and I'm just going to write the word hello because that just seems to be my go-to word. And so just write out a word that you want, and then what you're going to do is make a clipping mask. But before you can do this, you're going to need to go into the layer and change it from multiply to normal. Once you have it set to that, make sure your letters are below, and then you can click it and hit clipping mask, and then it will create that really cool effect. So I hope you had fun learning how to use my new alcohol ink stamps and brushes. Tag me at Blush River Design on Instagram so I can see the awesome things you make.